In this lesson, we're going to create a portrait sketch with charcoal in about an hour. Hello there everyone, Matt here with thevirtualinstructor.com, and in this lesson we're going to take a look at creating a portrait sketch with a variety of different forms of charcoal, and I'm going to limit myself to about an hour in this drawing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. For this drawing, we'll be working with vine or willow charcoal, which is very soft and brittle, but easily blended and removed from the surface. We'll also be using compressed charcoal in the form of a charcoal pencil. These marks are going to be very dark, but a little bit harder to erase. We'll also be using a blending stump. You can use a blending stump or a blending tortilla. And we'll be working with a couple of erasers, a kneaded eraser, and also a vinyl eraser for more precision erasing. We'll get started here on white drawing paper, and I'm going to start with vine charcoal. I'm using a very skinny stick, as you can see here, and I'm going to start with drawing a line for the forehead, and using that line, I'm going to try to figure out where the brow line is located. And you can see here that there's a slight diagonal that I've added here. I'm also going to draw a diagonal line for the edge of the eye before moving on to drawing a few lines for the hairline. Then it's back down to figure out where the nose is located from the information that I've placed on the surface, and also a little bit of that angle of the nose, right at the tip of the bottom of the nose, and then also where the nostrils are going to be located. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm putting down a bit of information that I can see, and then using that information on my drawing paper to make comparisons between where I need to make the next mark, basically moving my way from the top of the head and the top of the picture plane working downward. You can see here that I've now boxed out a location for the eye, and now I'm moving down to the mouth and the chin. Now obviously the chin is not visible here because we have a big white furry beard, but I'll go ahead and draw a contour line for where the edge of the beard is located. Now you might notice that I'm not using any drawing formulas like the Loomis method, for example. I found that the Loomis method does make all the heads appear very similar. The Loomis method is great for drawing heads and faces from imagination, but since we're working from observation, I'm going to stick with pure observational drawing. I'm going to go ahead and start adding a little bit of darker tone here, since the shadowed side of the face is mostly on the right side of the face, just getting a little bit of information about the value. Then I'm going to go back and refine the contour line that makes up the edge of the face, the forehead, and all the way down the nose and the mouth and the chin, before adding a few more details into the eyes and that section right underneath the eyes that a lot of us refer to as bags. We're also going to start adding a little bit of darker value on the edge of the nose here as we're starting to figure out the value relationships. Now I've switched over to a much larger piece of vine charcoal, and I'm going to go ahead and start filling in some of the darker values. Most of the shadowed side of the figure is on the right side, so we can go ahead and be pretty liberal with these applications. The vine charcoal, of course, is the softer of the forms of charcoal, so it's very easily manipulated. As you can see here, I've now switched over to a blending stump. Now I'm using this blending stump somewhat like a paintbrush. I'm moving the charcoal around, thinking about the planes of the face, and just manipulating the soft vine charcoal on the surface to create transitions and also work the material into the paper a bit. You want to think about all the tools that you use as a mark making tool. Of course, we're going to be using an eraser in just a minute to remove some of the material. We're going to think about the eraser in the same way, as a mark making tool instead of a tool for fixing and correcting. We'll go ahead and go into the white of the beard, knowing that at the later stages of the drawing, we will erase out some of the values, the lighter values, of course. Now we're starting to have a better understanding of the form of the head simply because we have some values in place. Value is the darkness or lightness of a color. You can think of a value range as a scale of different grays going from dark to light. And of course, value is incredibly important in creating the illusion of form and texture, the light source, and the intensity of the light source. Now I switched over to a kneaded eraser, and I'm going to start lifting up some of the soft vine charcoal. Again, this form of charcoal is very easy to manipulate and very easy to erase. At this point, I'm concentrating on the lighter values and the highlights. We can also erase out some indications of some wrinkles and details, again, continuing that thought process where our eraser is actually a mark-making tool. So we're thinking more in terms of the eraser being a tool that's creating lighter values. And the great thing about a kneaded eraser, of course, is we can move it and manipulate it and create different shapes so that we can create a variety of different shapes and different lines and so on in our drawing. You saw there for a second I used the vinyl eraser, which we'll switch back to later in the process. I'm using this eraser for more precision erasing. But for now, it's back to the blending stump, again, furthering the manipulation of the vine charcoal on the surface. Now, you might be tempted to switch over to compressed charcoal at this point, but we're going to save the compressed charcoal applications for the end when we know that we are ready to commit to some of the darker values, since compressed charcoal is a little bit harder to erase and much darker in value. Now you can see I switched back to the precision eraser. This is a Tombow mono eraser, and it allows me to do more precision erasing. The only drawback to this eraser is it does leave little shavings on the surface, which you'll need to brush away. Now I've gone back to the larger stick of vine charcoal. This is still the softer charcoal, and now we're working on some of the darker values that we see. You'll notice that when you manipulate the vine charcoal on the surface with a blending stump or perhaps your finger, the value does get a little bit lighter. Now that's going to help us create a full range. So we've got some of the middle grays in place, and now we can start concentrating on the shapes of darker value that we see on the face and head. Now we'll get back to the lesson in just a minute, but if you're enjoying charcoal, then you'll definitely love the course, the Charcoal Drawing course, which is available at thevirtualinstructor.com. In this course, we cover a variety of subject matter, including portraiture, animal portraiture, landscape, and still life. And for a limited time, I'm offering this course at 20% off the regular price. There's a link in the description below. Just use the promo code COURSE20 at checkout. All right, now back to the lesson, and we'll continue our manipulation of charcoal on the surface. You can see here with the blending stump and then with the eraser, I like to switch back and forth between the tools. In fact, a lot of times I like to hold all the tools in my left hand since I'm right-handed, so I can easily switch back and forth between the blending stump, the charcoal, and the eraser. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're working with charcoal, and perhaps you've already noticed this, is that we kind of start with a looser indication of the subject, and then gradually we refine the drawing as we go through the process. This is completely different than using a medium like pen and ink or colored pencils, where we start with precision and end with precision in most cases. In this case, we start with looseness, and then we gradually get more precise. And at many steps of the drawing, you may choose that your drawing is complete because we have such a full range of values so quickly with the medium of charcoal. Now, a lot of times people are turned off by using charcoal because it is that way, because that's a characteristic of charcoal, but it's very forgiving for that reason and surprisingly gives you quite a bit of control if you're just patient. And speaking of precision, we're now ready to start refining the drawing here with the eraser initially, just adding some wispy hairs there on the eyebrow before switching over to the compressed charcoal. Now I'm using a compressed charcoal pencil. Compressed charcoal is a little bit different from vine charcoal in that it's a little bit less forgiving. It's more permanent on the surface, and as you can see, the value is much darker. Of course, having it in pencil form gives us quite a bit of control. I'm starting here with the eyes since that's going to be the main focal point within the composition, and I want to make sure that the details are pretty accurate here. I'll continue to switch back and forth between the eraser and the compressed charcoal as we continue to add subtle details. We'll go ahead and go on the side of the face here with the compressed charcoal, making the values much darker and furthering the illusion of form, and also the wrinkles and details on the face. We'll work down the side of the nose where we have some fairly dark values here. Now, one thing you'll notice is the compressed charcoal pencil is showing more of the texture of the paper. Some people like this and they'll choose to leave it on the surface, but you can also blend this out using a blending stop, working some of the material into the tooth, creating a smoother appearance. I'll do this in areas of the drawing as we continue to work. Now down to the nostrils, adding some of the dark value that exists there, and then switching over to the blending stop where I am softening some of those compressed charcoal applications. So while compressed charcoal is less forgiving, it's still blendable, much like the vine charcoal. It's a little less blendable, but still it's easily blended with a blending stop. Now it's back to the kneaded eraser, making some subtle adjustments to the lighter values, especially here on the edge of the cheek where a lot of light is hitting. And then to increase the contrast, we'll go ahead and continue working down the side of the face in the darkest shadowed locations. You can see here that blending with a finger is possible, but it doesn't blend quite as easily as a blending stop. For more precision, you can use, of course, a blending stop. Now I'm using the vinyl eraser here to erase out some strands of hair since we've got some of the darker values in place. We'll do so on the mustache and the beard as well as we continue to work down. Now it's important to note here that I'm not trying to replicate every single strand of hair that I see here. I'm just rather giving an impression of some of the stray hairs over the top of the medium to dark values. This will give the impression of a furry beard as we see in the reference without having to spell everything out for the viewer. Now at this point, we're ready to increase the contrast along the edge of the face. So using the compressed charcoal pencil, I'm going to go ahead and refine the edge. So I'm not thinking about a line here. I'm thinking about the contrast of value that happens around the edge of the face. This will allow me to basically refine the edge of the nose and the other facial features as they bump up against that dark tone. We'll use the side of the charcoal pencil, as you can see here, to cover a broader area. And we'll also do the same in the darkest areas of the hair on the right side of the picture plane. I'm using vertical strokes here instead of horizontal strokes because it makes more sense with the subject. The face is longer, the composition is longer, the picture plane is vertical, so it makes sense to use vertical strokes here to add this value. And as we add this value, we can start to see the face is standing out quite a bit more from the background. We'll go ahead and give this compressed charcoal application a blend using the blending stomp. Again, I'm using the side of the blending stomp here to do so instead of the tip. And we'll also use vertical strokes here to mimic the strokes that we used with the compressed charcoal. Of course, you can use the tip around the edges for added precision. Now we'll erase out a few stray hairs over the top of the darker tones. And then we'll add a few more details to the eye. We started with the eye with compressed charcoal, and here we are refining our final applications here, adding just a few more shapes of darker value and also refining the edge of the upper eyelid. A few more indications of some wrinkles and some shapes of darker value are added in the area of shadow on the face. And now our charcoal portrait drawing, completed in about an hour, is complete. Thanks so much for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you were able to pick up a couple of things here and there. Don't forget, if you like this video, make sure you give it a like. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. And if you want to take your drawing and painting skills to another level, then you need to head over to thevirtualinstructor.com and check out our membership program, which includes a variety of drawing and painting courses on a variety of subject matter and media, weekly live lessons, which are all broadcast live and then recorded and stored in our vault, weekly critiques as part of the Members Minute, and a year-long curriculum for visual arts teachers. Thanks again for watching, and as always, I wish you all the very best in your artistic success.